The terrifying thing about humiliation is how quietly it can begin. Not with screaming, not with broken plates, not even with accusations. Sometimes it begins with prayer. The dinner was supposed to feel warm. That's what I remember most. Soft lighting, long dining table, candles, my mother's expensive dishes, the smell of rosemary chicken and fresh bread filling the house. Everything carefully arranged to look like stability, like family, like love. And sitting halfway down the table, smiling and laughing with everyone else, was the man I'd been sleeping with for 8 months. His name was Daniel, and inviting him had been my idea, which sounds insane now. But affairs change your sense of risk over time. You survive enough close calls, and eventually your brain rewrites danger into excitement. Daniel worked with me, senior marketing consultant. Funny, confident, perfect at making every conversation feel personal. And by the time the affair became physical, I'd already convinced myself my husband barely noticed me anymore. That's how I justified it. Not because it was true, because it was convenient. My husband Noah didn't question the dinner invitation at all. That should have scared me. Normally, he hated work friends visiting the house. Not aggressively. He just preferred privacy. But when I mentioned inviting Daniel and a few others from work for Sunday dinner, Noah smiled and said, "Sounds good." That was it. No hesitation, no suspicion, just calm acceptance. And looking back now, I realize something important. The moment someone stops protecting a relationship, they stop reacting the way you expect them to. Dinner started perfectly. Too perfectly. People were laughing, drinking wine, sharing stories. Daniel fit in disturbingly well. My father liked him immediately. My younger sister laughed at all his jokes. Even my mother whispered to me at one point, "He's charming." And hearing that made me feel sick for reasons I didn't fully understand yet. Because part of me enjoyed the danger, but another part of me suddenly realized how real this had become. Daniel wasn't hidden anymore. He was sitting at my family table, across from my husband. I caught Noah watching us twice during dinner. Not glaring, not suspicious, just observing, quietly. Like someone putting pieces together he already understood. At one point, Daniel touched my wrist while laughing. Tiny movement. Barely anything. But Noah saw it. I know he did because his eyes flicked down immediately, then back up. Calm. Always calm. That calmness started bothering me as dinner continued. Not because it seemed fake, because it seemed final. Noah was unusually attentive that night, refilling drinks, helping my mother with plates, making conversation, almost overly polite. At the time, I thought maybe he was trying harder for me. Now I know people become strangely peaceful when they've already accepted the truth. After dinner, everyone settled back into their chairs while dessert was served. Chocolate cake, coffee, the comfortable exhaustion of a long family meal. And then my father asked Noah to say grace before dessert. That was normal. Noah always handled grace during family dinners. Short, respectful, predictable. I remember reaching for my wine glass right before everyone joined hands, and I remember Daniel avoiding my eyes for some reason. Like instinct had finally reached him before it reached me. Noah stood slowly, smiled softly, then bowed his head. The entire table followed. "Thank you," he began calmly, "for bringing everyone together tonight. Normal, safe. Thank you for family." He squeezed my hand gently when he said it, and something about that made my chest tighten. "Thank you for honesty." That word hit differently, not enough to alarm everyone else, but enough that I felt heat crawl up my neck. Then Noah paused, just briefly. And when he spoke again, his voice stayed perfectly steady. And finally, another pause. Small, controlled. "I'd like to thank Daniel." Every muscle in my body locked instantly. Around the table, people slowly lifted their heads, confused, still not understanding. Noah smiled politely toward him, for showing me exactly what kind of wife I have. Silence. Total silence. The kind so complete it almost hums. I stopped breathing. Literally. My body forgot how. Nobody moved, nobody spoke, because the sentence had landed. But people were still mentally catching up to what it meant. Daniel looked frozen. My mother blinked rapidly like she'd misheard something. My father stared directly at Noah, waiting, hoping, praying there was another explanation coming. There wasn't. Noah released my hand slowly, then took a sip of water like he'd simply finished a normal prayer. "What are you talking about?" I whispered. But the words came out weak, thin, already guilty. Noah looked at me for a long moment. And the thing that shattered me wasn't anger. It was disappointment. Pure disappointment. "I'm talking about the hotel in Chicago," he said calmly. Then he looked at Daniel. "And Denver." Then back to me. "And the beach house in Clearwater." My stomach dropped harder with every location, because they were all real. Every single one. My sister gasped. Actually gasped. My mother looked physically ill. And my father slowly leaned back in his chair like something inside him had collapsed. I turned toward Daniel instinctively, wanting help, support, anything. Coward. He couldn't even look at me. "How long?" my father asked quietly. Not to Noah, to me. And somehow that hurt worse than everything else. I couldn't answer. Because once affairs are spoken aloud, they stop feeling romantic. They become inventory. Dates, places, lies. Noah finally stood fully from the table. Still composed, still terrifyingly calm. 8 months, he answered for me. Then he added, or at least that's how far back the receipts go. Receipts. That word made me look at him sharply. And Noah nodded slightly. "I hired someone after Chicago." My blood went cold. Chicago had been 6 months ago, meaning he had known for 6 months. And suddenly everything made sense. The calmness, the distance, the strange patience. This dinner wasn't discovery. It was conclusion. "Why would you do this here?" I whispered. Tears already forming. Humiliation spreading through my body so hard it felt physical. Noah looked around the table slowly. At our families, at Daniel, at me. Then he said the sentence I still hear in my head constantly. Because I got tired of being the only person at this table who didn't know the truth. That broke the room. My mother started crying immediately. My sister stood up abruptly. My father looked at Daniel with pure disgust. And Daniel? Daniel grabbed his jacket. That part destroyed me more than the exposure itself. Because the second consequences arrived, he ran. Noah noticed too. Of course he did. "Sit down," Noah told him calmly. And somehow Daniel actually froze. Then Noah continued. "So there, you've been comfortable eating in my house for months." He gestured toward the table. "You can survive 5 more minutes." Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The air itself felt heavy. I started crying harder, trying to explain, trying to apologize. But every sentence sounded pathetic before it even left my mouth. Noah never raised his voice once. That's the part everyone asked me about later. They expected rage, violence, something explosive. But controlled pain is much harder to survive than anger, because anger burns quickly. This had been prepared carefully. Noah reached into the cabinet beside the dining room, pulled out a folder, and set it gently on the table in front of me. Photos, hotel receipts, printed messages, phone logs, organized perfectly. My father wouldn't even look at me anymore. I was going to wait until after dessert, Noah said quietly. But honestly, he looked toward Daniel. I didn't think he deserved cake. My sister actually laughed once. Sharp, uncomfortable. Then immediately covered her mouth, because the situation had become surreal. Daniel finally muttered, I think I should leave. Noah nodded. Yeah, he said calmly. You should have done that 8 months ago. And Daniel left, just like that. Walked straight out the front door without even looking back at me. The silence afterward felt endless. Then Noah finally looked at me one last time and said, The divorce papers are already filed. Not going to be filed. Already filed. Again, that horrible realization hit me. He wasn't reacting emotionally tonight. He had already mourned the marriage privately. This dinner was simply the moment he stopped protecting me from the consequences. Months later, after everything collapsed, I asked Noah why he used grace. Why expose me during prayer, during something sacred? And his answer still makes me sick. Because everyone bows their head during grace, he said. I wanted you to know what it felt like to finally face the truth instead. And I still think about the silence after he thanked Daniel. That awful frozen silence where an entire table realized our marriage had already died long before dinner started. But the worst part? It wasn't my family staring at me. It wasn't Daniel leaving. It wasn't even the humiliation. It was realizing my husband had spent 6 months sitting beside me, already knowing everything, while I kept mistaking his restraint for ignorance. And by the time he said grace that night, he had already said goodbye to me emotionally a long time ago.